41. Okay. So tonight, this morning, depending on where you are in the world, we're continuing our series of The Age of Brilliance, part 41, with a transmission from our beloved Mynoo Maryel. We're continuing the portal of the transmission of fear, beginning from the 7th transmission, Activate. Fear was never the enemy, but what if what you fear is not even real? Last time we opened the portal, now we continue deeper. Beginning from Activate, the moment suppressed brilliance becomes operational. Because fear does not only create anxiety, it suppresses gifts, shrinks destiny, silences magnificence. In this powerful continuation, activate what fear taught you to hide, restore brilliance beneath distortion, shift from hesitation into coherent movement, transmute fear into restoration, results, and resurgence. A rare portal, a profound continuation. And onwards we go with Mynoo Maryel. Take it from here.
Thank you. And you'll be able to take care of the back room?
Yes,
the meeting room?
I will.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. So as we start our session today, a quick reminder that what we are doing with this particular series on transmutation of fear, this particular portal is where actually fear becomes freedom. And for that, it's important to understand transmutation itself. And I've covered it in the previous sessions, so guided that it is worthwhile reiterating it. Transmutation basically means turning one state of energy into a higher, clearer, and more powerful state. So in this transmutation, fear is not, in this transmission, we are applying the transmutation philosophy. So fear is not suppressed. It is not denied. It is managed or escaped. Fear is seen, acknowledged, accepted, and transformed until that hidden energy that is trapped inside fear returns as brilliance, as freedom, as movement, and magnificence. So at its deepest level, fear is a distortion. Transmutation is the return to truth. Fear, as we have treated it, says that something is wrong, I am unsafe, I shrink. Transmutation says, let me see what is real. Let me reclaim my energy. Let me return to choice. So transmutation of fear is a process, and these 12 different transmutation is us implementing that process. It is actually a process that you don't have to keep redoing like over and over. And any one of these can transmutate fear almost entirely for you. I have the luxury and the the blessing of working with all of these. So it's super exciting. So transmutation of fear is a sacred process. It's a sacred process where fear becomes focus, stagnation becomes freshness, delay becomes fast-track movement, and we've covered all of these previously. Numbness becomes aliveness, distortion becomes truth, helplessness becomes choice, suppression becomes activation, and instability becomes anchoring. Force becomes allowing. Fragmentation becomes restoration. Striving becomes regenerative results, and collapse becomes resurgence. So we are actually today going to start with the suppression that becomes activation. Transmutation is the miracle of taking what once diminished you and allowing it to become the very doorway through which your brilliance actually returns and resurges and amplifies. So I'm going to go straight into the transmutation of activation. There are so many nuances in this that I do actually have notes on this, which I refer to. So, transmutation number 7 is activate. So, what is activate? Activation is dormant brilliance becoming operational. That's really what is happening here. So, when you take this on, remember, the first part always is the use of acknowledgement to neutralize false expectations appearing real. That's the first part, always. Now, once you've got there, you can go straight to transmutation number 7. Now that you're in a clear space, false expectations have been acknowledged, and you are in a complete empty clearing, you can activate your brilliance and use this particular transmutation to enable that to happen. This point about using the dormant energy, and it's a powerful energy that hides within fear, because it really does stop you on your tracks, and it can be hugely destructive. And when you transmutate it and you're in a clear space where the noise of false expectations has been cleared, that same power you can apply to your brilliance becoming operational. So when we are in this realm of fear, false expectations appearing real, it suppresses our gifts. Activation restores them. Who does it impact? It impacts people who have been hiding as leaders, who have not been seen for who they truly are. Silent visionaries. People who know they were born for more and don't know how to go about actualizing that. This particular transmutation impacts them. So let's look at what is it that you can actually do about it. So when I looked at this, and I said, okay, this is about activating my hidden brilliance. And I took the first why, which is fear suppresses gifts, activation restores them. So I thought, okay, I know that I'm born with certain gifts. What are these gifts that I'm born with? It was hard, actually. Initially it was hard to come up with stuff. So I always like to apply, sorry, just a second. I always like to apply going back in time, benefit of hindsight. And with this one, I took the last 6 months. And I looked at the last 6 months and looked at what occurred that I believe is a representation of one or several of my gifts. Now, just looking back at the last 6 months, many things have occurred. We came to Chiang Mai in January, made the decision to move. There was a gift of premonition that I anchored, the gift of um, minimizing the variables and not overcomplicating anything. The gift of operating from in a knowing and standing tall in that. Even though when we went back and shared it with our family and friends, everybody was, nobody leaves Dubai for Thailand, for heaven's sake. And you're going there as a whole family, there's no need to do that. And I really, the gift of being in a state of stillness and dignity, honoring my own worthiness, and by that token, honoring that in others who were guiding me against against this decision. And people were like, why don't you give yourself another year in Dubai, and then decide? And people who were very close to me was like, you have such a big, agenda in the context of work that you've taken on. You're not ready to retire yet. And I kept saying, I'm not retiring, just rewiring, you know? Um, so I saw that there was a gift of clarity. There was absolutely the gift of standing in the space of clarity whilst uncertainty remained certain. And unknown really was the known. And some people who I thought would really be enthusiastic about it were like the biggest, um, the biggest opposers of this decision, and deeply hurt that I was being so stubborn and not shifting. So being able to honor them and remembering the gift of this person in my life was also a gift. Now, at this point, I'm like, okay, all of this is still January 2026. February was a whole another ball game altogether. So I looked at what was going on in February for me. I was practicing my dance routine um, for the wedding so that it's all done and I'm practiced and the sequence is sorted. And then I don't have to worry about it. I can really focus on work because we had to pack, send the goods by ship to Chiang Mai. All of that was going to happen in February. And you know what? I saw that gift of return to rhythm, return to my own, my reconnection to my body flowing in flow was a gift. So you can imagine at this point, you know, eye activation is very activated, you know. And then, of course, end of February occurs, the Dubai attacks happen. Then I'm looking at March, and February and March, honoring people's choices. It was a tough one, very tough one, despite my own fears, not projecting it onto them, honoring their choices, and remaining infinitely grateful for, the amazing synchronicities that meant that Sai and me were out of the country, which meant we had the wherewithal and the ability to take appropriate action with our young family that was still in Dubai. That reconnection and that amazing bond that got formed within the family, with friends, and the number of people I was able to be of service to, opening up even more blessings from the cosmos. So many gifts. My God, it was like infinite number of gifts. The reconnection to my ex-brother-in-law as we were planning how we will go and pick up Jill. He was a decent guy. So that was really sweet and beautiful. That was a gift, which meant that I had totally unconditionally accepted all that is. And being in this boot camp of clearing out false expectations appearing real almost every day and on a few days, several times a day, and seeing the power of this power tool of acknowledgement, that also was a gift. Trusting, keeping faith, gift. I'm sharing with you what happened with me. You know, my intention of doing this is so that you can take it on for yourself. It does not take that long. Even in 5 minutes, you will be amazed at how many gifts that are within you, you will uncover. And as you acknowledge that which is a gift, the restoration begins, resurgence happens, amplification is a given. And you land firmly, squarely in your presence. I also saw that I was implementing stillness. I was implementing sovereignty. Those portals that we had opened together. All of those were gifts. Now, when you become so aware of how many gifts you have, you know that everybody, each and every person, in fact, each and every being, but certainly each and every person has gone through their own collection of experiences. And given that I was like uncovering gifts from experience after experience after experience, it is a logical conclusion that each person on this planet is rich with a whole host of gifts. So now, this transmutation of fear, the activate transmutation is, in action. It is always useful to also look at, so if I was to say to you, how can you do this? It's always useful to also look at where you may have minimized yourself to feel safe. Nothing else to do but acknowledge, that's it. When you acknowledge it, it's not a hidden strategy or a hidden tactic that you go to. You actually complete it. It's whole and complete. That gives you the space and the freedom to activate your voice, your vision, your mission, and your magnificence. And that's exactly what happened with me. When I looked at the last 6 months, and there's so much more, by the way. You can imagine we were only at February and then a little bit of March. So much occurred in March. So much has occurred in April. March was a super long month, energetically. And so much more has occurred in April. And May is like bouncing along quite buoyantly. So many amazing gifts are emerging in May as well. I mean, this whole body of work on the transmutation of fear is such a blessing and a big gift. Realizing that we've only actually been in this country, since the third week of March, and we've had 2 house parties with people that we met here. The first one had about 30 or so people, the last one had about 65 people. And these are all people that we met here. I mean, with the exception of one person who has also migrated from London to Bangkok. Again, so that gift of beautiful connection and communication, the gift of, that dancing that I did in January, February time, opened my connection to my body. So as a result, when I've gone into Thai boxing and Pilates and strength training using my own body weight. That also is a gift to actually have the diligence and the discipline to keep going with this. And I'm so present to so multiple times a day, I can see the phenomenal blessing that Ken always talked about in the context of Chiang Mai. I'm so grateful, and I really share that gratitude and appreciation for a place such as this amazing Chiang Mai where we live, that such a place even exists in the world. It's modern to exactly the right extent. It's spiritual to exactly the right extent. It's physical in terms of a variety of things that you could do. I mean, I have never done exercise bare feet, other than Pilates, where I wear the Pilates socks. Thai boxing is bare feet. My strength training is bare feet. My trainer goes, no, 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 I don't want you wearing shoes. I don't know where you're going to put your pressure. I need to see your feet fully. So it's like everything is so real. And I'm just like so present to being in this amazing place and knowing that it exists. So this activate is a very powerful transmutation. And remember, there are some of these Age of Brilliance portals where you have to follow the sequence. The only piece you have to follow here is the acknowledgement. Do that fully. Then you can go into any one of the 12 transmutations and do a deep dive into it. Be in its fullness, and you will see how everything in your field transforms. Fear shrinks destiny almost. Activation introduces your destiny to the world. You're not activating anything other than you in the fullness of your presence. That's what you're activating. And you are the all-powerful one. You are the divine. You are the creator. Any low vibration cannot withstand the frequency that you emerge into. Let's go to the transmutation number 8. The transmutation number 8 is anchor. What does anchor actually mean? Anchor means stabilizing truth inside the body. Why is it important? Because without anchoring, humans fluctuate emotionally with circumstance. Anchoring is what creates coherence. So by doing what I just shared with you, activation of my gifts, and keeping going until there's no more gifts to discover, you are anchoring a knowing of how gifted you are. An unequivocal understanding that in any circumstance, the fact that you exist today is a culmination of all of your gifts. It gives you the freedom to feel your feelings. It gives you the freedom to walk your path without having to go save some and support others in their paths at the cost of you. You get into a knowing that when you do that, the ripple effect of you being in this space automatically starts to uplift those that are touched by you, and those that are the closest to you are impacted the most because you are anchoring something you're born with, dignity, your own worthiness. When you are not anchored in dignity is where the fluctuation emotionally with circumstance occurs. When you anchor in gifts, you're actually anchored in your own dignity, and that creates coherence. Who does this anchoring impact? It impacts all of us, but particularly it's of great benefit to those that are constantly emotionally pulled by the external world. Emotionally pulled by the external world as an empath, even. Emotionally pulled by the external world with this deep desire to save the have-nots. Emotionally pulled by the external world because of the fear of the destruction that is being caused. Whatever. It's the emotionally pulled part to the external world. You are actually taking yourself away from you. You are not anchored in your own presence. So how do you work with this? Always begin by acknowledging instability, where you may be feeling unstable. I mean, I have to admit, we were talking about it as a family and we were saying, it's really in the last 2 weeks, we feel like we've landed home. We were in our beautiful home. We came here on the 1st of April, but there was still that PTSD sort of experience that we'd gone through that we were still processing in our own way. Now we feel we have arrived home. And we do believe that it took longer because we never acknowledged instability to the extent that it was calling to be acknowledged. So I have started doing this. I do at night, and I don't, most of the times I don't pick up instability, but sometimes I do. So I will just look at, is there anywhere that I'm experiencing that vibe of instability? I know what it feels like in my body. So if I tune into that particular part of my body, if I feel any form of discomfort, I know there's some instability lurking somewhere. I find it, I acknowledge it. Nothing to do with acknowledgement other than just simply acknowledge. And I keep acknowledging it until how it feels in my body, what effect it has, all that stuff, until there is nothing left to acknowledge. Then the next thing I do for myself is I do the stillness breath or the sovereignty breath, which is you breathe in and then take a long breath out, at least 2 times, possibly even 3 times longer than the breath in. And that brings you back into your body. 3 breaths, sometimes 5. And those breaths slide into the realm of gratitude. As I am in the space of gratitude, I find myself reconnecting to my presence. And in the end of this process, there is nothing left to say but to just hold my hands in prayer. And every prayer is the prayer to you, the creator within you. Even though you may think you are praying to another energy force, the act of prayer is actually a prayer to your inner divinity. the creator within you. The being or the energy that you are praying to, be it Jesus, be it Allah, be it, Sai Baba or anybody else, they are there holding the container for you to receive the honoring that you are giving them. They are giving it right back to us. The act of prayer and the duration of that act of prayer allows you to receive it. By starting with breath, sliding into gratitude, anchoring my presence, I just have to fold my hands and I receive. If you don't go through that process, by being in prayer for that extent of time, you will still receive. This is a very powerful regenerative ritual in itself to anchor flourishing. Anchored humans, they stop drowning in temporary storms. I mean, it's not an insignificant deal that all of our stuff from our two homes is sitting in a container in Dubai. And we are here. So it's not insignificant that that is the case. It has all my paintings. It has all the crystals. It has all my journals, Jill's journals from the time that she was a schoolgirl, and many other things are there. And the funny thing is, none of us, we may mention it about the irritant that it is, but none of us are drowning in it. We miss some of the things sometimes, especially since, you can't be living in a home without some of the basic essentials. So there's lots of duplicate stuff. Now we'll have multiple vacuum cleaners and God knows how many rugs and stuff when the stuff arrives, and so it is. But it's really coming from knowing that we are anchored. Initially, it was anchored in the magic of Chiang Mai, receiving it. It welcomed us so beautifully. And now we become anchored as a human. And you know what an anchored human is? Remember, the innate vibration of being human is love. It's an amplifying frequency in itself. So flourishing amplifies. I can keep going, but I'm just going to stop and check in. Sarah, I'm not keeping track of chats, but if there's anything that's showing up for you, or if there's anything in the chat that you would like to bring up.
Well, Ken writes an acknowledgement of you. My heart sings that you are here, dear Mynoo. I am now 52 years here. Chiang Mai, an amazing home for me, and Bali, my second home, the home of our hearts.
Very true. Very true. I am absolutely blessed and privileged to be here, and great that Ken, you were there because it made the decision so much easier. Ken was actually present when we as a family were discussing in January, whether we decide to move here. So you played a very big role in that. Anything showing up for you, Sarah, from what I have shared so far?
A lot, but I'd like you to continue. I'm just taking it all in piece by piece.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to do the acknowledgement where you've asked, acknowledge where you have minimalized yourself to keep safe. Because safety has come up a lot, and you know why, but I realize I've taken myself out of the game to keep safe.
Great, 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 great. Okay, don't forget the gifts.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for pointing they go together. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, the next transmutation, number 9, is a big one. It is allow. I remember I first heard Abraham Hicks talk about allowing. Everything begins with allowing. And I didn't know what that meant, but I know when I first went to Bali in 2010 and found that I had booked myself in a resort for 3 weeks where there was nobody else, no other guests except me. And they said they had 14 cancellations that week. I knew that for 2 of the 3 weeks, I was the only guest. And on the last week, they were doing a program. So there were going to be lots of guests as a part of that program. And then I remembered allow. I didn't just pack my bags and rush out. Because there was like insecurity, lack of safety, all that stuff did show up. And I just allowed. And the first place that allowing showed up was I would, go down for breakfast. And Balinese people are beautiful people. They are like, they really follow the Hindu principle of a guest is akin to a visit from God. So they treat you that way, right? So there I am by myself, ordering some breakfast, and I'm just shutting myself out from the world. And they're like really wanting to serve me, asking if they can arrange a massage for me, or they can do this or they can do that. And I'm like, please, just leave me alone. And I saw a sadness show up on their face. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to allow them to be of service. And the first time I said, yeah, it would be really lovely if you can actually get me a fresh coconut water. And the big beaming smile from every pore of this person's face and sparkling eyes was wonderful to experience. That opened the doorway of allowing. Now, when you allow is the end of force. It requires a huge amount of force for us to close the doorway to what the universe already has to give to us. Allowing opens the floodgates of manifestations, miracles, synchronicities. And literally from that, the second or the third day of being in Bali, where I started allowing, I found that my breath was deeper. The pain started to disappear from my ankle, which was recovering. And that uneasiness that I had in my stomach region on account of intravenous antibiotics for 2 weeks before I got there started easing off. And I started what I called as downloading. I started seeing phenomenal signs. And I embarked on this journey of what am I to do next? And uncovered that desire to live an extraordinary life where all aspects of life coexist with ease, grace, and joy. The universe took charge, and because I allowed, and it started showing me all of those amazing, amazing facets that exist to serve me as I choose to live my life. And I understood the importance of the 6 cylinders. I had the third eye opening experience, whole variety of things. And Sarah, you were there. We had gone to this amazing Balinese Dukun healer. I visited him a few times while I was there. Had this amazing coconut blessing, went to the top of the volcano. A variety of things occurred just simply by allowing. This is a huge transmutation, allow. Because it It ends that unnecessary force that is the virus that eats up our life force. It ends that. Allowing opens the floodgates. It is literally opening the gates of manifestation, and it opens the floodgates of divine blessings. Fear, and why does it do that? Because fear over controls. Brilliance trusts and brings in a lightness of being. Who does this particular transmutation impact? Those that have that fixation to control, those that feel that they have to fix everything, those that are in this bull force sprint of achieving, like forceful achievers. I was absolutely one of those exhausted performers. I was also one of those. Allow naturally activates that stillness breath, and stillness breath is the sovereign breath. The first way of how you can do this for yourself is you acknowledge where force replaced flow. Acknowledge where force replaced flow, and then simply allow. Allow yourself to receive, support, accept it. Allow the natural timing and rhythm of what is to occur to occur. Allow synchronicities. Allow miracles that make your heart sing. Allow grace to bless you. It happens so naturally. The moment you allow, and you first in that allowance open yourself up to be supported and release the attachment to timing, you will be shocked and pleasantly amazed at how synchronicities come together for you to accomplish the end result ahead of time. Remember to acknowledge the miracles, which are beautiful things occurring that make your heart sing, and acknowledge the blessing of divine grace. What force cannot achieve, allowing often unlocks effortlessly. I'm doing strength training at the moment, right? So really been working on for the last 6 sessions that I've had, I've been working on reconnecting to the strength of my legs and the flexibility of my hips. It is tough. It is extremely tough. So I have been reconnecting to that. At the last session, he decides he's going to get me to do a deadlift. I mean, it looks very intimidating, you know, and he's got 15 kilos on both sides. I mean, I can barely do 5 kilos on both sides. And he's wanting me to do this deadlift with 15 kilos on both sides. But I do trust the guy. You know, he really knows his stuff. And so he said that, look, we worked on your legs. I believe that your legs are strong enough. But you're looking at this and you're feeling your back isn't strong enough. But we're not going to use your back or shoulders to lift this. You're going to use the power in your legs to lift this. Did not compute, by the way. Could not understand the logic of this myself. So he just said that, okay, I'm going to guide you step by step. I mean, it took me 10 efforts, 10 attempts, because somehow my logical mind always went back to the arms and the shoulders, and that directly impacted the back. And that's when he would immediately stop me. And then I did the sovereign breath, everything that I have asked you to do here. And I said, I'm going to allow my legs to show what they are made up of. It was bizarre. So I'm holding this thing. It's on the floor. I'm holding it. I squat down, go down as far as I can through my hips. My chest is open, and I'm holding it. And literally, like, I stand up. And yes, there is pressure in my entire body, but this thing actually lifts up. And I'm like, wow, this is magic. It cannot happen like this. I realize what force could not achieve, allowing unlocked effortlessly. I allowed my legs to really step into their power. Because he kept saying to me, look, your legs are carrying, like I keep going, like I have 30 kilos to lose. He said, your legs are carrying an extra 30 kilos every day, wherever you go. In the cave adventure that Ken and I did, we did 680 steps. My legs carried me there, 30 kilos. So he says, all I'm asking to do is another, 30 kilos. So I know that your legs can do it. Allowing made that happen in a very physical way. This transmutation got so anchored in my being. I'm still like gobsmacked by that whole scene feels so unbelievable. I only did it once after 10 attempts. The 10th one was that. When I switched to allowing. Just checking in, Sarah, if there's anything showing up for you.
A lot, but it's wonderful. Keep going. I want to make sure that we complete on time everything you want to complete.
With each question, there is some stuff that gets revealed, or each clarification, or each sharing, something gets revealed. So when I'm asking you, there must be something there that you're going to bring up that will be of service to all.
Well, I'm really present to thank you. I'm extremely present to allow because as you know, I resist. I'm excellent at resisting. And I'm imagining what allowing could look like. You've shared your example.
Yeah, just choose it in one area, because it is literally like, a bud is really tight. You don't even know that there's a flower inside, right? The calyx is green, it blends with the leaves. And when it just allows itself to open, it automatically blossoms. Allowing is like that. You allow it in one area, and then blossoming starts to happen. That's the key.
And okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I haven't. I'm going to look and see where I have allowed and what.
I'll talk about, yeah, that's where have you resisted? And I think it would be primarily because of safety issues. Since you've already taken on addressing that, then allowing will become easier.
Yes, but is it useful to go back and do an account of where I've or where we have actually allowed, as you just did?
Acknowledge start with acknowledging where force replaced flow.
Where force, okay, not where flow replaced force.
Yeah,
in reverse.
Force replaced flow, mainly because I'm cleaning out that it's a low vibe thing, cleaning it out. Okay.
Thank you.
And then allow.
Okay.
And always begin by allowing support to show up, allowing the natural rhythm of timing, as opposed to that rush energy. You like literally dissolving the rush energy. And you stop You transform from being a consumer to actually becoming a creator. And
Right.
that opens up synchronicities. Look out for synchronicities, acknowledge the synchronicities, they multiply.
Well, what I just realized when you say allow support to show up, and you've shared that with us before, but it just hits me now that I get frustrated if support doesn't show up, but then that's counter to just allowing and asking for support to show up, as opposed to feeling entitled that support should show up, but it's not showing up, or it
Yeah.
appears to not being showing up.
It only happens because we are so supported, Sarah. You know, if we weren't supported, we would be dropping dead left, right, and center.
I,
So much supports us, right? So really allow yourself to become very aware of the support that already exists and allow yourself to receive that support. Where we feel unsupported is we become attached to how that support has to show up. And we become attached to how that support has to show up, as opposed to being resolved about the intention that we have, that we wish to accomplish. But universe perhaps has completely different plans.
I suppose so, yes. Because as you know, I had many attempts for support with requests to support for
Yeah,
London. And
yeah.
I just feel that there was never really an effective support that was willing to go the long mile, because
Yeah,
there was
but
a
that
lot of
that effective is your definition of effective. It may be that all that was needed was that tiny little 2% that would have just got you across the line. But because you got caught up with how you wanted that support to look like, it didn't necessarily go across the finish line. It could be that. Just look at it,
okay,
you know?
thank you. Mm.
And
Yeah,
you
I
see,
suppose I
sometimes,
feel disappointment, and when you feel that, it doesn't allow.
yeah.
Ananta has an acknowledgement. It's so awesome and inspiring to hear about your weight training and Thai boxing experiences, Mynoo, and how it's bringing these transmissions to life in such an embodied way.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's continue. We have 5 more minutes. Let's see. So the next transmutation number 10, is restore. So what does restore actually mean? What does transmutation of energy applied to restore mean? Restore means returning humans to that original wholeness. And remember, the original wholeness restores us to our innate vibration of being love, which is an amplifying frequency. Now, you can only amplify if you are whole, if you experience that wholeness. Fear, why is it important to be in this, to apply this transmutation? Because fear fragments identity. Restoration, reunites it, reunifies it. By me saying to you, always begin, whenever you decide to take on the transmutations, always begin with a full on acknowledgement of false expectations appearing real. You'll realize how many we have. And because they are just false expectations, they are not rooted in anything, they are not real, they are literally fragmented. And because the quantum of those is such that it fragments our very identity. And when our identity is fragmented, it's much harder to be fully present, to be present per se. So, many of you here have done my work on source mastery, which is all about you experiencing yourself as whole and complete when you are in that source mastery. And when you're operating from source, there's nothing else to do but to leave people consistent with this amazing mastery that you have been blessed to share in this world. We all have our own unique mastery. If you feel disheveled, if you feel shaken up, it's just fear fragmenting your identity. And all that is called for is false expectations appearing real, acknowledgement of those. Don't rush it. Don't rush it. You will be surprised where these hidden expectations lurk in your field. Take as many days as it takes until you have nothing left to acknowledge. Restoration automatically kicks in and you start feeling whole and complete. Who is this restored transmutation for? For those who have lost a part of themselves simply trying to survive. We were not given the gift of life to survive. That's really that's not the game that our Creator is playing. Yeah. We were given the gift of life to thrive. Thriving and flourishing never occurs alone. Survival is a very lonely activity. Just checking on time. How can you do this? You can do this by acknowledging every self-abandonment that you may have engaged in or even indulged in. Everywhere where you abandoned yourself, your desires, your joys, your requirements, your needs, acknowledge those. Just as a process, without getting attached to anything. Once you have acknowledged everywhere that you have abandoned yourself, declare unconditional acceptance of all that is, then restore your dignity. You allow yourself to reconnect to your worthiness. When you start doing that, dignity is restored, truth is restored, self-respect restores itself. Brilliance is not becoming something new. It is remembering who you always were and being that. Over to you, Sarah, to complete our session today.
Well, thank you, Mynoo. I feel again that this is so essential for me and everyone, because we all go into fear, and we all have past fears, and we carry fear. I'm going to practice. I love that sovereignty, stillness, breath. I'm going to really put that into practice, and go into gratitude and acknowledgement. And I am the allowing, I think is so important. And the exercise you asked me to do, which is acknowledge where force replaces flow, because normally I don't do it. I wanna have the flow, but I don't acknowledge where I've allowed, or where force has replaced flow, and to allow the support to show up in any form, and also to make the request to the universe. And I'm going to go back because I haven't been, I wasn't able to be present for transmission 1 through 6. So I'm going to go back to listen to that flow, and then move on to re-listen to that tonight. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.